A stranger messaged me on Facebook. Thank you for the laptop. It's perfect. Confused, I responded. I think you have the wrong person. She sent a screenshot of the purchase, made with my credit card. Furious, I traced the transactions, thousands spent on someone else's life. That night, I left a receipt on the pillow with a note. I hope she's worth losing everything over. The next morning, their luxury lifestyle vanished overnight. I got a random message on Facebook last Thursday night. Thank you for the laptop. It's perfect. At first, I thought it was spam. I was exhausted from work, half asleep on the couch, mindlessly scrolling through my phone while my husband, Mark, was still working late. I almost ignored it. But something about it felt off. It wasn't some scam link or a generic bot message. It was a real person. A woman, judging by her profile picture. I squinted at the screen, trying to make sense of it. I think you have the wrong person, I replied. Seconds later, she responded. Nope. Pretty sure it was you. Here's the order confirmation. Thanks again. She attached a screenshot. And right there, at the top of the email, was my name. A MacBook Pro, ordered from Best Buy. Shipped express. Paid for with my credit card. I sat up so fast my vision blurred. My heart started pounding, the way it does when you narrowly avoid a car accident. I opened my banking app. My fingers were shaking as I scrolled through the transactions. There it was. $2,499 to Best Buy. And then more. Nordstrom. 5-star restaurants. Hotel stays in downtown Chicago. Jewelry from Tiffany's. Thousands. Gone. I couldn't breathe. My stomach twisted into a tight, painful knot. I scrolled further back, my eyes scanning frantically. These charges weren't just recent. They had been happening for months. I felt dizzy. My hands felt numb. I had been so busy with work, with life, that I hadn't even noticed. And then, another message popped up. Mark told me you were covering it. You're seriously the best. Mark. My husband. My body went ice cold. I stared at the message, my brain struggling to catch up. I forced myself to type. How do you know Mark? No response. I waited. Watched the screen. My pulse thudded in my ears. Then I saw the 3 little dots. Typing. Gone. Typing again. Gone. And then I was blocked. I jumped up so fast my phone nearly flew out of my hands. My breathing was erratic, my chest tight. I needed to talk to Mark. Right now. I checked his location. Not at work. Not anywhere he should be. He was at the Peninsula Hotel. A 5-star luxury hotel in downtown Chicago. The kind of place we never went to because it's too expensive. But apparently it wasn't too expensive when it came to her. I grabbed my keys and left. The drive was a blur. My hands were gripping the wheel so tightly they ached, but I didn't loosen them. I didn't let myself feel anything except the burning in my chest, the rage keeping me upright. I pulled into the hotel's entrance way too fast, barely throwing the car in park before I jumped out. I stormed through the lobby, my heart racing, my mind flashing between anger and disbelief. And then, there he was. Mark. Standing at the check-in desk. Beside him was a blonde woman, her body draped in a tight red dress, her wrist flicking as she twirled her room key between her fingers. His hand rested on the small of her back, his head tilted toward her as she laughed. He looked comfortable. Relaxed. Not like a man who had just stolen thousands from his wife. Not like someone who had been caught. That's what did it for me. Not the betrayal. Not the money. The lack of shame. I walked straight up to them. Mark turned, his expression morphing from amusement to shock. His hand jerked away from her like she was on fire. Hey, I said, my voice calm. Steady. Too steady. The blonde glanced between us, her perfectly manicured fingers still gripping the key. She didn't look guilty. Just confused. Mark swallowed hard. What are you? I pulled something from my bag and slapped it onto the counter. Our hotel key card. The one from home. His face drained of color. Room 304, right? I said, keeping my voice light. I figured. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. The blonde's brows furrowed. Wait, what's going on? I turned to her, offering a small, polite smile. I hope he's worth it. Then I turned and walked out. Mark didn't follow. I walked out of that hotel with my heart hammering so hard I thought my ribs might crack. I didn't go home. I couldn't. Instead, I drove. Nowhere in particular, just moving. I needed to move. My mind was a mess. The betrayal, the stolen money, the other woman, all of it swirled in my head like a storm. But beneath all of that, something sharper was cutting through. Rage. Not sadness. Not heartbreak. Just pure, burning rage. And underneath that rage was something even worse. I wasn't just angry at Mark. I was angry at myself. Because now, looking back, I saw it. The small, ignored signs. The excuses I brushed off. The late nights. The password changes. The missing receipts. I had let this happen. And that thought? That was worse than anything else. By the time I got home, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I wasn't going to cry into my pillow. I wasn't going to beg him for an explanation. I was going to erase him. I called a locksmith and had the locks changed that night. Then I opened my laptop and got to work. Bank accounts? Frozen. Joint credit cards? Cancelled. Savings? Transferred. Mark had been funding his little side life with my money, but he wasn't getting another cent. And when he came crawling back, expecting to smooth things over, he'd find out real fast just how deep his mistake had cut. At 1:47 a.m. my phone rang. Mark. I stared at the screen, my pulse pounding. I let it ring. He called again. And again. And then a text. Babe, what the hell? I can't get into the house. I smiled. It was a cold, humorless thing. I didn't respond. Then, another text. Are you serious? Let me in. I turned off my phone. Let him rot. By morning, things escalated. I woke up to 17 missed calls and a dozen texts, all variations of, I'm sorry. Can we talk? This is a huge misunderstanding. It's not what you think. Typical. But then, something new. I think we need to discuss this before you make things worse. Before I make things worse? That caught my attention. I turned my phone back on and checked my email. And that's when my stomach dropped. An alert from my bank. Someone, Mark, had tried to withdraw everything from our joint account. $38,000. And he had failed. Because I had already locked him out. But the fact that he had tried? That was all I needed to know. This wasn't just about him cheating. He was desperate. By noon, I was feeling better. Lighter. Mark had texted me a few more times, but his messages were getting shorter. More frantic. I ignored them all. Then, at exactly 12:36 p.m., someone knocked on my door. I froze. No one just showed up at my house unannounced. I crept to the window and peeked outside. A woman stood on my porch. Not the blonde from the hotel. Someone else. She was young. Maybe mid-20s. Dark hair. Pretty, but not in an overdone way. She wasn't dressed for anything fancy, just jeans and a hoodie. She didn't look angry. Or threatening. She just looked nervous. I didn't open the door. But I did crack the window. Can I help you? I asked, keeping my voice even. She looked up at me, eyes wide. Are you Mark's wife? My blood turned to ice. I didn't answer. But I didn't have to. She sighed, running a hand through her hair. I need to talk to you. It's about Mark. I clenched my jaw. I don't need to hear anything from you. No, you do. She swallowed hard. Because I think he might be dangerous. I felt my stomach twist. And then, in a small, shaky voice, she said, He did the same thing to me. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just stared at her through the window, my fingers gripping the sill so tightly my knuckles ached. He did the same thing to me. Her voice echoed in my head, bouncing around in the spaces that were already raw from the night before. I took a slow breath. My heart was racing, but I forced myself to stay calm. Start talking, I said. She shifted on her feet, hesitating. Then, with a glance over her shoulder, like she was checking to see if someone was watching, she leaned in closer. Can I come in? She asked. Everything in me screamed no. I didn't know this woman. I didn't trust her. But I wanted to hear whatever she had to say. I stepped back and opened the door just enough for her to slip inside. She didn't look relieved. If anything, she looked more nervous now. I led her to the kitchen, but I didn't offer her a seat. I just crossed my arms and stared her down. Talk. She swallowed. My name is Rachel, she said, voice tight. I was with Mark 2 years ago. For almost a year. My stomach twisted. I didn't know he was married. She continued, shaking her head. Not until the very end. I stayed quiet, waiting. Rachel took a deep breath. He did to me what he's doing to you. He took my money, maxed out my credit cards, drained my savings, all while sleeping around behind my back. My pulse pounded in my ears. He left me in debt. Thousands. When I finally realized what he was doing, he disappeared. Just gone. My mouth felt dry. And now you're here because... Rachel hesitated. Then, she pulled out her phone and tapped the screen. She turned it toward me. And when I saw what was on it, my whole body turned cold. It was a screenshot of an email. From Mark. Sent 2 weeks ago. Hey Ratch, I've been thinking about you. I miss you. Let's catch up. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. He's been reaching out to me, she said, watching my face carefully. I ignored him at first. But then, I got curious. So I responded. I forced myself to look up at her. What did he say? Rachel exhaled. He told me you two were having problems. That you were unstable. That he was thinking about leaving. My vision blurred with rage. Rachel lowered her voice. He told me he was moving money around, getting ready to start fresh. Said he was being smart this time. Something dark and ugly curled in my chest. He had done this before. He had planned this. And he was getting ready to do it again. Why are you telling me this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Rachel shifted uncomfortably. Because he's dangerous, she said. And I don't think he's just going to let you walk away. A chill crawled down my spine. Dangerous. The word didn't fit. Not with the Mark I thought I knew. But now, I wasn't so sure. Rachel pulled something from her pocket. A flash drive. I recorded our last conversation, she said. You need to hear it. I reached for it, but she didn't let go right away. She stared at me, her expression serious. Listen to it, she said. And be careful. And then, without another word, she turned and walked out the door. I stood there, gripping the flash drive, my heart slamming against my ribs. I didn't want to plug it in. I didn't want to hear what Mark had said. But deep down, I already knew. He wasn't just cheating. He was planning something bigger. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the flash drive like it was a bomb waiting to go off. Rachel's words echoed in my head. Listen to it. And be careful. I didn't hesitate any longer. I plugged it into my laptop, my hands shaking as I clicked the only file inside. And then I heard his voice. Mark. He sounded relaxed. Casual. Like he wasn't discussing destroying my life. I have to be careful this time, he was saying. She caught on quicker than I thought. But it's fine. I've got enough moved already. What if she fights back? Rachel's voice was tight. Mark laughed. She won't. She's too emotional. By the time she even figures out what's happening, I'll be gone. The blood in my veins turned ice cold. Gone. Mark had been planning to disappear. To leave me behind, just like he had done to Rachel. What about the money? Rachel pressed. There was a long pause. Then, Mark's voice dropped into something low and unfamiliar. What about it? You took all of hers. You're taking hers too? Another laugh. Of course. What, you think I'm gonna leave empty-handed? I snapped the laptop shut. My whole body was shaking, but not from fear. From rage. I wasn't just dealing with a cheating husband. I was dealing with a fraud. A con artist. And I wasn't going to let him win. For the next 3 days, I didn't answer Mark's calls. I didn't respond to his texts. I let him panic. I could tell he was getting desperate. His messages changed from apologetic to demanding. Then to threatening. You're making a huge mistake. You're gonna regret this. We need to talk. Now. That last one? That's exactly what I wanted. I sent him one response. Dinner. Our place. 7 p.m. He took the bait immediately. Fine. He thought I was breaking. He thought I was weak. He had no idea what was coming. At 6:50 p.m., I set the stage. I laid out every receipt. Every fraudulent charge. Every transfer to his hidden accounts that I had managed to trace. And right in the center of the table, I placed the flash drive. Then I poured myself a glass of wine. By the time Mark walked through the door, I was perfectly calm. He wasn't. He looked stressed, his hair disheveled, his eyes darting around like he expected to see his things packed up. About time, I said, taking a sip of wine. He blinked, thrown off by my tone. Look, he started, running a hand through his hair. I know you're mad. And I get it. But we need to. I slid the flash drive toward him. He stopped talking. You should listen to this, I said. It's a recording. Of you? His face paled. You know, I continued, tapping the glass. I used to think you were just a cheating bastard. But now I realize, you're much worse than that. Mark forced out a laugh. Come on, don't be dramatic. I tilted my head. Dramatic? You stole from me. You planned to drain me dry and then leave. His eyes flicked to the table. He saw the bank statements. The fraudulent purchases. And I saw it. The moment he knew he was screwed. Mark exhaled sharply, shifting his stance. Okay. Fine. I made some mistakes. But you're overreacting. I was gonna pay you back. I laughed. And the look on his face? It was the first time I had ever seen him look afraid. You think this is about the money? I asked, standing up. You could have taken every penny I had, and I would have been fine. But you didn't just steal my money, Mark. I stepped closer. You stole years from me. You made me believe you were someone you're not. He clenched his jaw. You need to calm down. Or what? I asked, tilting my head. You'll run? You'll find another woman to use? Silence. You know what the funny part is? I continued. I actually felt bad when I kicked you out. I actually wondered if I was being too harsh. I took another step toward him, lowering my voice. But now, I don't feel bad at all. Mark opened his mouth, but I didn't let him speak. I froze everything. I said. The accounts. The credit cards. Your little secret savings? Gone. The new place you were planning to run to? I found the lease agreement. Cancelled. His nostrils flared. And by the way, I added, reaching for my phone, you might want to start looking for a lawyer. He froze. I smirked. Because I reported everything. He lunged for me. Not to hit me. Not to hurt me. But for my phone. I stepped back, my grip tightening around the device. You ruined my life. He seethed. I smiled. I just evened the score. His face contorted with rage. You think you won? You think? His words were cut off by the sound of sirens. Mark's head snapped toward the window, his eyes widening. That would be the police, I said. You see, when you steal someone's identity, that's called fraud. And when you do it across state lines, that's federal fraud. Mark's face drained of color. You. I stepped back, crossing my arms. I hope she was worth it, I said, my voice cold. Because you just lost everything. The police pounded on the door. Mark turned to me, his face twisted in desperation. Please, he whispered. Don't do this. I didn't say a word. I just opened the door. And watched as they took him away. It was over. Mark was gone. I sat in the empty house, taking in the silence. I should have felt broken. Or lost. But I didn't. I felt free. I picked up my wine glass, swirling the last sip at the bottom. For years I had built my life around a lie. Around a man who never really existed. But now I had a chance to rebuild. Without him. And for the first time in a long, long time. That felt like a win.